So for the first time ever on South African soil, the Springboks will be taking on the Barbarians. It is happening this weekend, and with that brings our first lineup prediction of 2025. Now I have to say, Rassie, he does not make it easy. In fact, this one I believe will be one of the hardest lineups to be able to predict, but I am going to try my best. Of course, do let me know who you think Rassie will be selecting in the comments down below. Nonetheless, we will start now with the front row. Now, from what Rassie Erasmus has said, it sounds like the Bulls players aren't going to be playing in this matchup. So, of course, that takes away a few of the propping options for this side. And also, there are a couple players who are still overseas, the likes of a Thomas du Toit and a Boan Venter, which does mean that there are limited options in terms of this front row. But I've gone number 1, Oxnard, as he is one of the only loose heads that they may have available for this matchup. Number 2, Bongyum Manambi, and number 3, I have gone with the new man, a debutant for this contest, although it won't count as an official Springbok cap, as this match is considered a friendly, and that is Azanathi Nalabakanye, the big man for the Lions. He's had a tremendous season. He does bring a lot of size to the front row alongside Oxnard. I feel like no matter who the Barbars have in their starting side, it's going to be a handful at scrum time, and then also having that stability of Bongyum Manambi in the middle could lead to some pretty dominant scrums in the early stages of the contest. In terms of my locks, I have gone with number 4, Eben Etzebeth. Now, of course, by selecting Etzebeth, it means that I'm going a bit more with experience rather than giving a youngster an opportunity. The perfect guy to put in this 4 jersey, I feel, could have been Cobus Visa, but with the fact that he's been with the Bulls for that URC final, just feel like they might give them one more week to be able to recuperate. Number 5, I've gone with Ludiacha, a man who has had his fair share of injury troubles. Him and Etzebeth could be a very dangerous combo this year, and maybe they look at Salman Mura in that number 4 jersey instead, but I just feel up against the Barbarians, you want to have that stability at scrum time, as well as the lineouts. Plus, Rassie Erasmus did mention that he wants to give a few of those guys who were playing in Japan a bit more of a chance here before the internationals in July. So it would make sense to have at least Ludiacha or maybe Franco Moster, if not both, in the starting lineup for this matchup. Moving on to the loose forward trio, this is where I've gone number 6, Sia Khaleesi. Now, initially I was going to have him off the bench, have Etzebeth starting as the captain, and then have Sia Khaleesi come on round that halftime mark, and then have him take over the captaincy for the second half. But instead, I've gone with both in the starting lineup. Alongside Khaleesi in that trio, I've got Vincent Tachuka as the number 7 and number 8, Jasper Visa. Now, that number 8 jersey, it's been a bit of a concern for the Springboks throughout this year, losing player after player in terms of Elric Lowe, Cameron Honeycomb, Jarno Augustus. The list really does go on, but someone who has recovered from his injury but just lacks a bit of game time is Jasper Visa. So I do think that Rassie Erasmus will give him a chance in this matchup, whether or not it's in the starting side or off the bench. Of course, at this stage we're just guessing, but I do think Jasper Visa would be a smart man to have in that number 8 jersey. Vincent Tachuka, big opportunity for him. The fact that he plays alongside Sia Khaleesi at the Sharks, I feel, will make the transition into the international rugby side of things a little bit easier. Of course, this is still considered as a friendly though, but they'll be facing some very tough opposition in this Barbarian squad. But looking through now at my backline, number 9, I believe there's a fairly high chance that we will either see Morne van den Berg, which is who I've gone with in that number 9 jersey, or perhaps Faf de Klerk, seeing as he has been playing in the Japanese top league. But for me, I think van den Berg may just get the nod. We know that Rassie Erasmus loves the split squad system, and he is going to be using it this year, and it will be in full effect up against Italy and Georgia in July. But Morne van den Berg partnering with this number 10, Sasha Feinberg, Mngome Zulu, that is a dangerous combo that the Springboks could build upon. Of course, they'll have that experience of de Klerk and Pollard, although I don't think Pollard's quite back ready to play for them as of yet after the Gallagher Premiership final, so they may wait one more week for him, which does give Sasha or Mani the opportunity from the fly half jersey. Now, I do think that Sasha Feinberg, Mngome Zulu, he's probably a little bit low in confidence at this very point in time. Only about maybe 6-7 weeks ago, he was looking like one of the best 10s in the world. Couple games in a row for the Stormers though, including that playoff match. Just never really found that next gear. Made a few silly errors. His kicking game was less than ideal. So I do think in an open kind of playing game, like you'll have up against the Barbarians, of course, they will have some structure to their play, but they will also throw that ball around. That's when someone like a Sasha Feinberg Zulu has not just the opportunity to score a try for himself, but also set up a couple for the Springboks, and that will give that man a huge amount of confidence that I feel he really needs heading into the next matches. So I do think Rassie may be on the same page, so that's why I've stuck him in the number 10 jersey. Moving on to the centre pairing. Now, originally I wanted to have Andre Esterhuizen in that number 12 jersey, but then once again, just like this whole lineup, Rassie got in my head a little bit in terms of his comment about having the players from Japan in the lineup somehow. So I've got Damien Dialende in the number 12 jersey, and number 13 I have gone with Jesse Creel. Now, out of those two centres, Jesse Creel definitely seems like the more likely, seeing as that number 13 jersey, in terms of men who can play it, they're a little bit lighter. No Lucanio arm due to injury. They have got Ethan Hooker as a potential option. I know that the Sharks have been playing him out on the wing, but quite a few people would like to see him back in that midfield combo. But I do think they will want to get that combination going again between Dialende alongside Creel. So if I had to guess, that is the combination that I think Rassie will select. Moving on to the back three, number 11. This is where I've got Cheslin Colby. Now, we do know that he's been playing in Japan, and as always, has been playing to a very high level. Now, of course, him being in the Springbok side is such a dangerous threat up against the Barbarians. Definitely, like I mentioned, similar to Sasha Feinberg Zulu in an open style game. That's where Colby can be his most dangerous. Of course, one of the best players at finding space in the world. Out on the right wing, this is where I've got Kurtley Arunsa. Now, he has also been playing in Japan. He too is an absolutely sensational talent. And another thing mentioned by Rassie Erasmus was that even though the Barbarians can really throw all sorts of different things at you, they still want to keep their structure, the Springboks. And I do feel like having those two wingers will definitely be able to bring that. And then in that number 15 jersey, I'll be honest, I had Damien Valimza, but now that I think about it, I don't know if his suspension has come to an end. I'm not sure whether it was a match suspension or a week suspension. I think it was matches, in which case he wouldn't actually be allowed to play in this game up against the Barbarians because of where the Stormers finished in the URC, getting knocked out in the quarters, which would have been the first week of his ban. So I'm not too sure if Valimza can actually be selected in that number 15 jersey, in which case I would go with Apalele Fasi. But if Valimza is available, I'd like to see him at 15 just to get him some minutes before the side do head into July. But I think Apalele Fasi, he's another guy that last year really stepped up in the Springbok jersey. This year for the Sharks, he was all right at times, although nowhere near as confident under the high ball as he was last year. So I don't think the Barbarians are going to do a huge amount of kicking throughout this matchup, but something that could happen is a few massive line break opportunities. And Apalele Fasi, he's got the pace, he's got the vision to find the gaps, and I do think that this type of stylistic matchup will work very nicely in his favour. Same can be said about Damien Valimza, of course, if he is not still suspended. Looking through at my reserves for this matchup up against the Barbars, I have gone number 16, Malcolm Marx. I do like the idea of having him in the lineup somewhere for this matchup. Number 17, this is where I have gone Jan-Hendrik Wessels. Now, the only reason I've done that is I believe all the other loose heads are not actually available for this matchup. In terms of Boan Fenta, he's not going to be arriving up until the 29th of June, which I believe is pretty much the day that this match has taken place. You've got Thomas Dutoy, who also will still be overseas, seeing as he was playing for Bath in the Gallia Premiership. They haven't got Gerhard Stennekamp due to his injury. So other than Oxnashare, I'm actually not 100% sure if they have another loose head other than Jan-Hendrik Wessels. So I mentioned how they may not be playing any Bulls players, but if you have to, you have to. So Jan Hendrik Wessels might sneak in as the number 17. My prediction for number 18, this is actually where I've gone with Vincent Koch. Now, there are a couple other guys that they might look at, Nedeling Fouché, for instance, but I've already gone with Nalaba Kanye in the starting lineup, and I do think Rassie, he's talked about mixing and matching the side a little bit, so I do still see him selecting some of the experienced guys that he did have in the squad last year. In terms of the rest of the forwards, I've actually gone with the 5-3 split. That is what I'm predicting Rassie will do. I'll be honest, I think a 6-2 up against a side like the Barbarians may be a little bit overkill, only because, I mean, some of those guys for the Barbars, don't get me wrong, they're still active players, but the way that the Barbarians play, normally the game slows down quite a bit in the second half, and I don't think the Springboks will need to really dominate that pack to be able to have success. Plus, having the extra back isn't exactly a bad thing. So number 19, I've got Franco Mostert to give him some time since coming back from Japan. And then number 20, Quagga Smith. He offers all three positions in the loose forward trio. Plus with Mostert, he can play either lock or loose forward. So it works quite nicely just having those two players as my Springbok forwards. But now the back replacements. Number 21, if he is available and has recovered from his injury, I would go with Grant Williams, a man that the Sharks have been begging to see all throughout the season, week in, week out. Just didn't quite seem to be ready to return, but hopefully now he is. If not, I've got Faf de Klerk as that other option in the number 21 jersey. Number 22, this is where I've gone with Manie Libbok. They may look at replacing a Stormer with a Stormer in the later stages of the game. Also, Manie Libbok playing up against the Barbarians, the perfect opposition for him to show off his kicking, mainly that cross kick. If you've got Kurtley Arendse and Cheslin Colby out on the wings, there could certainly be some spectacular tries scored. And then number 23, this is where I have gone with Ethan Hooker. Now, there is also a chance that Rassie will start him in this matchup. I have no idea where he's looking at for Ethan Hooker, though, whether that is at 11, whether that's 14, whether that is in the centre pairing, perhaps at 12 or 13. The thing is, Hooker, he is extremely versatile, and I do think wherever they put him, he's going to be able to bring an impact. Had a great year for the Sharks, playing at times what some would say was out of position, but still made the most of it, still scored tries, and could certainly be a breakout star for the Springboks throughout this year. But that is my lineup, ladies and gentlemen, that I'm predicting for Rassie Erasmus and his selectors for this upcoming match up against the Barbarians. If we're being completely honest, I have no idea who they're going to be going with. We've had little clues, like I mentioned, but nothing that has been set in stone. It's the way it's going to be for most of the season with the Springboks lineups, and that is something that makes it so intriguing watching their season progress, because you just never know who Rassie's looking at, and as soon as you think you've found a pattern, the man completely switches it and completely throws the opposition off. But of course, like I said, do let me know who you think the Springboks will be going with. I'd be happy with 50%, although there may even be a chance that we go a little bit lower than that number 2. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. As soon as the lineup is announced, which is going to be at midday on Tuesday in South Africa, we will be letting you know, so be sure to check that out as well. But thank you all very much for tuning in, and I will see you all for the next one.